Comment below if you've ever had a reunion that changed everything. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. The 30-story tempered glass of the Manhattan skyscraper reflected the gray clouds of New York City like a melancholic mirror. Ethan Davies adjusted his navy blue tie for the third time in 5 minutes, a nervous habit he had developed in the past months of his crumbling marriage. At 34, he bore the weight of a financial empire on his shoulders and a personal life in ruins. The secretary knocked on the door with professional discretion. "Mr. Davies, the representatives from the Green Earth NGO have arrived for the 3 o'clock meeting." Ethan nodded without taking his eyes off the city that stretched out like a labyrinth of concrete and interrupted dreams. Another unfounded accusation, he thought. Another legal battle that would cost time and resources to prove the company's innocence. He was tired of fighting shadows. The door opened with an almost inaudible sound, and Ethan turned slowly, preparing the corporate smile he had used during so many negotiations. But the smile died on his lips before it was born. Clara Stanton, 7 years. 7 years of silence, of unanswered questions, of sleepless nights searching for clues as to why she had simply vanished from his life like smoke dissolving into the air. And there she was, in an impeccable black pantsuit, her brown hair pulled back in an elegant bun, carrying a leather portfolio and an expression he knew well. Determination, masking vulnerability. Time seemed to stretch like a rubber band about to snap. Ethan felt his heart race in a way it hadn't since the last time he had seen her. "Ethan." Her voice was deeper, more controlled, professional. "Mr. Davies." "Clara." He could only whisper the name as if it were a forgotten prayer returning to his memory. The other members of the NGO entered behind her, a middle-aged man with a gray beard and a young woman with glasses. But Ethan didn't see them. He could only see Clara and the way she avoided his gaze, focusing on neutral points in the room. "Please, have a seat." Ethan gestured toward the conference table, surprised by the firmness of his own voice. Clara chose the chair farthest from him, opening her portfolio with precise, mechanical movements. Her hands, Ethan noticed, were trembling almost imperceptibly. She was still wearing her college graduation ring on her right pinky finger. "Mr. Davies," the bearded man, who had introduced himself as Dr. Robert Davies, began. "We are here to discuss the situation of the industrial site in the Northwood District. Our organization has received reports that Davies Enterprises has been aware of soil contamination for over 2 years. Ethan forced himself to pay attention, but his eyes kept being drawn to Clara like an irresistible magnet. She was scribbling notes in a planner, the same small, neat handwriting he used to find on notes left on the fridge when they lived together. "We have all the environmental permits in order," Ethan replied, switching to autopilot. "Our company has always rigorously followed all regulations. Regulations didn't protect the families who are developing chronic respiratory problems." Clara's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Or the children who have been born with neurological malformations in the past 3 years." She looked at him directly for the first time, and Ethan felt the impact of those hazel eyes like a punch to the stomach. There was pain there, old pain and new pain, mixed in an expression that left him breathless. "Dr. Stanton is right," Dr. Davies continued. "We need full transparency, access to original reports, soil analyses, impact studies." The meeting lasted for an hour. Ethan could barely concentrate on the technical issues, the legal demands, the established deadlines. His mind was trapped in a past he couldn't digest. The dawn he had woken up to, only to find a 2-line letter on the dresser. "I can't do this anymore. Forgive me." "I know." When the NGO representative stood to leave, Ethan felt an irrational desperation. "Dr. Stanton, could you stay a few more minutes? I'd like to discuss some specific points of the process." Clara hesitated, closing her portfolio with unnecessary force. "I have another commitment, Mr. Davies. Please, it will be quick." Dr. Davies and his assistant said their goodbyes, leaving them alone in the room that now seemed larger and quieter. Ethan walked over to the window, turning his back to her. "Why did you come back?" The silence stretched on like an eternity. When Clara spoke, her voice was different, softer, less controlled. "I've been working here in New York for 3 years. 3 years." He turned slowly. "And you never what? Never looked for me?" A bitter laugh escaped his lips. "You got married, Ethan. I saw the photos in the papers. The wedding of the year, remember?" Ethan closed his eyes. Victoria. The marriage that had transformed into a gilded cage, into endless nights of arguments, into a corrosive silence that consumed everything around them. "You left me." The words came out harsher than he intended. "You just disappeared, without explanation, without—" "I had my reasons." "What reasons?" Ethan took a step toward her. "What reasons justify disappearing from someone's life? Canceling a wedding by letter? Leaving someone to wonder for years what they did wrong?" Clara stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. Her hands were visibly shaking now. "You don't understand?" "Then explain it to me. Give me a reason. Anything that makes sense." The cry echoed through the room, and both were paralyzed by the intensity of the emotion. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, trying to compose himself. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. I was pregnant." The words fell like stones into a silent lake. Ethan felt the world shift beneath his feet. "What?" Clara took a deep breath, as if preparing to dive into deep water. "When I found out I was pregnant, my father was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. I was 25, Ethan. My mother had died tragically when I was 16. I had no family, no support system, and you were building your company, your dreams. I couldn't. You were pregnant with my child." His voice was hoarse, incredulous. "Children," Clara corrected, tears finally escaping. "Twins." The world stopped. Ethan felt his legs give way, and he leaned on the table. Where are they?" "Mia and Leo. They're 7. Clara wiped her face with the back of her hand. "They're at school now. 7 years." Ethan repeated the words as if they were in a foreign language. "I have 7-year-old kids. Ethan, Where are they?" He moved toward her, stopping a few inches away, his eyes glowing with a mixture of anger and desperation. "I want to see them. Now." "It doesn't work that way." "How does it work then?" Ethan practically screamed. "You decide on your own when I can meet my own children?" Clara backed away, but didn't lower her eyes. "They don't know you exist, Ethan. To them, you're just a man who couldn't stay. I can't just show up with you and say, 'This is your father.'" "You stole my children!" The accusation came out low, but filled with pain. 7 years, Clara. 7 years of first steps, first words, birthdays. You stole all of that from me. I was protecting them. From what? What were you protecting us from?" Clara looked away. "From me. From my family. From the genetics I carry." Ethan frowned, confused. "What genetics?" "Mosaic Turner syndrome." The words came out like a painful confession, a rare condition that can affect neurological development. "I found out when I was pregnant. There is a chance of transmission to the children. I couldn't put that responsibility on you. So you decided to bear it alone. I had no choice." "Yes, you did." Ethan slammed his fist on the table. "You could have trusted me. You could have told me. We were partners, Clara. Engaged. We were going to get married, remember?" Clara sobbed, all professional composure finally breaking. "I was scared. My father was wasting away every day, no longer recognizing my face. My mother died tragically when I needed her most. I couldn't risk you abandoning me, too. It was easier to leave first." Ethan stood in silence for a long moment, processing all the information. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, but loaded with a deep sadness. "You didn't even give me the chance to choose to stay. I loved you." He looked into her eyes. "I loved you more than any dream, more than any company, and you knew it." Clara shook her head, tears now falling freely. "I loved you too. That's why I left." They stood there, separated by feet of distance and years of resentment, but united by a shared pain that neither of them knew how to heal. "The kids' medical exams?" Ethan asked, his voice hesitant. "How are they?" "Leo is fine, perfectly healthy. But Mia..." Clara took a deep breath. "She shows some neurological symptoms. We're still investigating. That's why I came back to New York. The best specialists are here." Ethan felt a knot in his chest. A daughter he didn't know, possibly ill, needing care he didn't even know he was supposed to offer. "I want to help." "Ethan, please." He moved closer to her, stopping a few inches away. "Don't ask me to pretend I don't know they exist. Don't ask me to keep living as if I don't have children." Clara looked at him for a long moment, and Ethan saw in those eyes the same love that had sustained him for years, mixed with fear and hesitation. "They're going to have a lot of questions. I have answers. They might not accept you immediately. I can wait." Clara closed her eyes, and Ethan knew an internal battle was being fought there. When she opened them again, there was a fragile but determined resolution. "They get home from school at 5. There's a park near our apartment where they usually play." She hesitated. Can you show up as if it's a coincidence, like an acquaintance of mine? Let me prepare the ground." Ethan nodded, his heart beating so hard he was sure she could hear it. "Where?" Clara scribbled an address on a piece of paper and handed it to him. Their fingers touched briefly, and Ethan felt the same electricity from years ago. "Ethan," she hesitated at the door. "I'm so sorry for everything. I know it doesn't justify it, but I'm so sorry." After she left, Ethan stood alone in the room, looking at the paper in his hands, as if it were a map to a lost treasure. 2 hours until he met his children. 2 hours to figure out how to explain 7 years of involuntary absence. He picked up his phone and canceled all his appointments for the rest of the week. Some meetings could wait a lifetime, others couldn't. The park near the apartment complex buzzed with typical late-afternoon energy. Kids ran between the playgrounds, while parents balanced quick conversations and watchful glances. Ethan parked his black SUV at a safe distance and sat in the car for a few minutes, his hands trembling against the steering wheel. 7 years. 7 years of a lost life. 7 years of hugs not given, stories not told, nights when he couldn't check if they were tucked in properly before they slept. Anger and nostalgia mingled in his chest like toxic ingredients. He checked his watch. 5:15. Clara said they usually arrived around 5. Ethan got out of the car. He adjusted his blue dress shirt and walked toward the benches near the playground. He chose a strategic spot, visible, but not intimidating, as if he were just there by chance. His heart jumped when he saw Clara approaching on the sidewalk. She was wearing jeans and a simple white blouse, her hair loose, waving in the breeze. But it wasn't her who caught his attention. It was them. Mia was running a few steps ahead, her light blonde hair in 2 messy braids. She wore a navy blue dress with small yellow flowers and pink sneakers that flashed with every step. Leo walked beside his mother, more contained, a Spider-Man backpack on his back and a serious expression that Ethan recognized as his own childhood trademark. Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. They were beautiful, perfectly, devastatingly beautiful, and there was something in both their eyes, that specific grayish-blue hue, that left no doubt about his paternity. Mom, can I go on the slide? Mia's voice was high-pitched, full of life. You can, honey, but stay where I can see you. Clara sat on a nearby bench, pretending not to have noticed Ethan, but he could feel the tension in her shoulders. Leo stayed at her side, observing the park's movement with the patience of someone much older. Ethan took a deep breath and stood up, casually walking toward the water fountain near their bench. As he passed, he made sure to stumble slightly, dropping his keys. Clara feigned surprise, bending down to pick them up. Clara Stanton? She turned, and Ethan saw the poorly concealed nervousness in her eyes. Ethan! What a coincidence! Her acting wasn't convincing, but it would do. What are you doing here? I live a few blocks from here. I often run in the park. He vaguely gestured toward the running track. And you? Oh, I brought the kids to play for a bit. Clara hesitated. Ethan, these are my children, Mia and Leo. Leo observed him with analytical eyes, clearly evaluating whether Ethan posed any kind of threat. Hi, the boy said, his voice cautious. Hi, Leo. Ethan knelt down to his level. Nice to meet you. Do you know my mom from work? We've known each other for a long time, Ethan answered carefully. We're old friends. Mia had stopped playing and approached, curiosity overcoming her initial shyness. You have eyes just like ours, she observed, tilting her head to the side. Ethan felt his heart leap. The honesty of a child could be devastating. Really? He smiled. Maybe it's a coincidence. My teacher said there's no such thing as coincidence. She said everything happens for a reason. Mia balanced on the tips of her toes. What's your name? Ethan. That's a dad man name. She smiled, revealing a slightly crooked front tooth. Do you want to see how I can go down the slide head first? Clara quickly stood up. Mia, don't do that. It's dangerous. But Mom, maybe you could show me how you go down normally first, Ethan suggested. I bet you're very brave. Mia beamed and ran back to the playground. Ethan sat on the bench next to Clara, maintaining a respectful distance. He stopped, unable to find the words. Energetic, stubborn, too curious for her own good, Clara finished, but there was affection in her voice. Perfect, Ethan said simply. She's perfect. Leo had sat on the other side of his mother, but kept observing Ethan. Do you have kids? The boy asked suddenly. The question hit Ethan like a punch. He looked at Clara, who averted her eyes. No, he answered honestly. I don't have children. Why? Leo, Clara gently reprimanded him. It's okay. Ethan turned to the boy. That's a good question. I guess I never found the right person to start a family with. My mom doesn't have a husband either, Leo commented. She said our dad couldn't stay with us. Every word was a stab. Ethan had to swallow before responding. Sometimes circumstances are complicated. Do you think our dad would like you? Leo asked, and there was a vulnerability in his voice that broke Ethan's heart. I'm sure he would love you more than anything in the world, Ethan responded, his voice choked with emotion. Just like any father would love children so special. Leo smiled for the first time, a small but genuine smile. Do you want to see my drawing? He opened his backpack and took out a notebook. I drew a dragon at school today. Ethan took the notebook with careful hands, as if holding something precious. The drawing showed a dark green dragon with golden wings, breathing fire at a castle. That's incredible. You have a lot of talent. Mia draws better than me, Leo admitted. She draws people. I only know how to do dragons and cars. Dragons and cars are cool subjects, Ethan said seriously. Do you like cars? Leo's eyes lit up. I do, especially sports cars. My mom said that when I'm big I can have one, if I work hard. That's a good plan, Ethan smiled. What's your favorite? Ferrari, red. Leo replied without hesitation. What about you? Do you have a car? I have a few, Ethan admitted. Maybe one day I can show you. Really? Leo perked up, but soon looked at his mother. If Mom lets me, of course. Clara was tense. Ethan could feel it. The situation was getting out of hand, and he knew he needed to back off. Look, you two. Mia came running back, her cheeks flushed with excitement. I made a friend. Her name is Julia, and she has a dog named Popcorn. That's great, honey, Clara replied, checking her watch. But it's getting late. We need to go home. Already? Mia pouted. 5 more minutes? 5 more minutes, please. Ethan can stay to watch me go down the slide properly. Ethan looked at Clara, who hesitated. I think your mom is right. It's getting dark. Are you going to come back here other times? Leo asked. Well, I run here a few times a week. We come here every Tuesday and Thursday, Mia informed him, and on Saturdays too when we don't have other things to do. Mia, Clara reprimanded her. We don't need to tell everyone our schedule. But he's not everyone, Mom. He's your friend. Ethan and Clara exchanged a look filled with meaning. That's right, Ethan said softly. We're old friends. Then you can come back, Leo decided. Friends can come back. During the walk to the car, Mia skipped beside Ethan, chattering about school, about the teacher who had purple hair, about the cat that showed up in their yard. Ethan, she said suddenly, stopping. Are you sad? The question took him by surprise. Why do you ask that? Your eyes get sad sometimes, just like Mom's when she thinks I'm not looking. Ethan knelt down to her level. Sometimes adults get sad about things from the past, but being here with you makes me happy. Then you should come more often, so you're not sad. The innocence in her voice almost made him cry right there. Maybe I will. When they got to Clara's car, a white Honda Civic with a few scratches, Leo hesitated before getting in. Ethan? Yes. Thanks for not leaving when Mia was chattering. A lot of people get annoyed. I loved talking with both of you. Leo smiled again and got in the car. Mia waved her hand energetically from the window as they drove away. Ethan stood on the sidewalk until the car disappeared, feeling as if a part of him had been torn away. They were his children, who didn't know who he was, who had grown up without him, who were perfect and wonderful and were inches away, but completely out of reach. He took out his cell phone and dialed Clara's number. Hello? They're incredible! Silence on the other end of the line. Ethan! No, let me talk. His voice trembled. They're incredible, Clara. Smart, loving, curious. And I lost it all. All the important moments, all the little everyday miracles. I lost it all. I know. Her voice was choked. I know, and I'm sorry. How do you do it? He asked. How do you manage to raise them alone? It's overwhelming. Some days are harder than others, Clara sighed. Especially with Mia. She has episodes, intense headaches, mental confusion. The doctors are still investigating. Ethan's stomach tightened. How can I help? Ethan, we talked about this. They liked me, Clara. Didn't you see? Mia invited me to come back. Leo shared his drawing. They need a father figure, even if they don't know I'm their father yet. A long pause. You have to understand one thing, Clara finally said. If you enter their lives, you can't give up. You can't decide it's too hard and leave. They've suffered enough. I'm not going anywhere. How can I be sure? Because I love them, Ethan replied without hesitation. I met them 2 hours ago, and I already love them more than I knew it was possible to love someone. Imagine after a lifetime. Another silence. Tuesday? Clara finally said. You can come on our Tuesday, But slowly, Ethan. They need to get used to you first. Thank you. He closed his eyes in relief. Thank you for giving me this chance. When he hung up the phone, Ethan sat in the driver's seat and allowed himself to cry for the first time in years. He cried for the loss, for the nostalgia, for the instant and overwhelming love he felt for two children he barely knew, but who were, indisputably, the most important thing that had ever happened in his life. Tuesday couldn't come soon enough. 3 months later, Clara's apartment had been transformed into something completely different from what it was before Ethan's return. The walls, once sober and neutral, decorated only with diplomas and abstract paintings, now displayed a colorful and chaotic gallery of children's drawings. Dark green dragons from Leo competed for space with portraits of the family made by Mia, where everyone appeared holding hands under a smiling yellow-orange sun. On the refrigerator, colorful animal-shaped magnets held a growing collection of memories. Photos from the park taken with Ethan's cell phone, reminders of medical appointments written in Clara's neat handwriting, report cards with golden stars, and a special note written in a child's still hesitant handwriting. Ethan is our special friend, and he makes Mom smile. Below, in Leo's firmer hand, was written, he makes us smile too. Ethan had become a constant and expected presence on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and on Saturdays, when he didn't have urgent company commitments. What began as casual and carefully orchestrated meetings in the park had naturally evolved into entire afternoons at Clara's apartment. Dedicated help with homework, dinners that stretched on until the children fell asleep on the living room sofa, still clinging to the storybooks he read in different voices for each character. Leo had officially adopted him as a confidant for all matters of men, sports cars he saw on the street, and dreamed of driving when he grew up, football teams and their incomprehensible statistics, and mainly the deep and seemingly insoluble mysteries of the female universe, represented by his sister Mia and his mother Clara. Mia, for her part, had included him in all her sacred and non-negotiable rituals, the careful choice of the bedtime story, which varied between brave princesses and intrepid adventurers, the detailed technical evaluation of each of her drawings, and the daily consultations on what clothes made her look prettier than a real princess, but not those silly ones who wait for a prince. Clara watched all this transformation with a heart constantly divided between the deepest gratitude and a fear that gnawed at her from within. Every genuine laugh from the children with Ethan was simultaneously a blessing that warmed her soul and a punishment that reminded her of everything she had denied them for 7 long years. How to explain to 2 innocent children that this man they loved with a growing naturalness, who treated them with instinctive paternal affection, who knew their quirks and fears as if he had always been present, was in reality the father they thought they had lost forever before they even knew him? The question tormented her during her sleepless nights, when she stayed up listening to Ethan read stories in the next room, his deep and loving voice narrating adventures of unlikely heroes and happy endings that seemed like promises whispered in the dark. "Mom," Mia appeared in the kitchen on that sunny March Thursday, as Clara prepared dinner with automatic movements, lost in her thoughts. "Is Ethan eating with us tonight?" "Yes, honey." Clara forced a smile, stirring the tomato sauce harder than necessary. "But remember, he has to leave a little earlier tonight. He has an important commitment." "What kind of commitment?" Leo appeared behind his sister, as he always did, his investigative curiosity in full swing. Clara hesitated, the wooden spoon suspended in the air. She couldn't say that Ethan was meeting with his lawyers to finalize the last details of his divorce from Victoria, a process that had been dragging on for months amid increasingly absurd accusations against him and a growing emotional instability that left everyone around her treading carefully. "Work stuff, Leo. Boring adult things." "He works a lot," Mia observed, thoughtfully nibbling on a carrot she had stolen from the salad. "Just like you, Mom. You two work a lot." "Adults sometimes need to work hard to take care of the people they love," Clara explained, hoping the answer was sufficient. "Does Ethan love us?" Mia's question was asked with the disconcerting naturalness of someone asking about the weather or the color of the sky. Clara almost dropped the pot. The question hit her like a punch to the stomach, not because of the surprise, but because of the absolute certainty of the answer she couldn't give. "Why do you ask that, honey?" "Because he looks at us the same way you do." Mia tilted her head to the side, as she did when she was processing something important. "With that look of protection, you know, like when you worry when I'm sick or when Leo is sad. And yesterday I dreamed he was our real dad. It was a really nice dream." Leo rolled his eyes with the typical impatience of an older brother. "Mia, you dream the craziest things. Last week you dreamed you were a mermaid and could breathe underwater." "But this dream was different," Mia insisted, her eyes shining with a conviction that scared Clara. "It was like in the movies. He picked us up from school every day. He played with us in the yard at home. He slept here at our house. He ate breakfast with us. It was like we were a real family." "We are a real family," Clara said quickly. "The three of us. We're a complete family." "I know, Mom." Mia smiled with exaggerated patience. "But in the dream, we were an even more complete family, with a dad and a mom and kids, like my friends' families at school." Leo fell silent for a moment, and Clara realized with a knot in her heart that he also thought about it, even if he didn't verbalize it like his sister. "Mia." Clara knelt down to her daughter's level, her hands still trembling slightly. "What do you feel when you're with Ethan?" "Safety." The answer came without hesitation, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Like when you hug me after a nightmare. Like nothing bad could ever happen to me. Like he's able to fight any monster to protect me." Leo nodded silently, and Clara realized with a knot in her heart that he felt exactly the same. Her children had found in Ethan something that she herself had not even perceived they were looking for. The father figure that completed the emotional puzzle of their lives. The doorbell rang, interrupting the meaningful moment. Mia ran to open it as she always did, followed by Leo, who automatically took on his role as the more cautious protector. Clara heard the children's joyful exclamations and Ethan's deep voice, responding with equal enthusiasm and genuine affection. "I brought you a surprise," Ethan announced when they came into the kitchen, carrying a mysterious bag. "What surprise? What surprise?" Mia jumped impatiently, trying to peek inside the bag. Ethan showed them a small box with colorful tickets. "Tickets to the movies. There's a new Spider-Man movie, and I thought we could go on Saturday. If your mom lets you, of course." "We can, Mom. Please, please, please." Mia clasped her hands in dramatic pleading. "I really want to see that movie," Leo added, with more contained but equally genuine enthusiasm. "I heard the kids at school say it's the best one ever." "Of course you can." Clara smiled, but Ethan noticed the familiar tension in her shoulders, the way she avoided looking at him directly. "It's going to be fun." During dinner, the children chattered animatedly about the movie they were going to see, about their friends from school, and their latest mischief, about the science project Leo was developing with the dedication of a little scientist. Ethan participated in the conversation with a naturalness that seemed to have been born with him, asking smart questions that showed genuine interest, laughing at their childish jokes as if they were the funniest things in the world, helping Mia cut her meat with infinite patience. Clara watched him discreetly, as she did every night. He was a natural father, effortless and without pretense, patient with Mia's endless mischief, attentive to Leo's silent needs, who preferred to show affection through small gestures, affectionate without being permissive, present without being suffocating. Everything she had dreamed he would be if he had had the chance to be a father from the beginning. "Ethan," Leo said suddenly, in the middle of their dessert of flan. "Are you married?" The question took everyone by surprise. Ethan almost choked on his flan, and Clara felt the blood freeze in her veins. "Why do you ask that, Leo?" "Just curious." Leo shrugged with studied casualness. "You never talk about your family, and you wear a wedding ring." Ethan looked at his own hand, where the white gold ring still shone. He still wore it more out of automatic habit than for any emotional meaning it might have. "I'm getting divorced," he answered with careful honesty. "Sometimes marriages don't work out, even if people try very hard." "Is it sad?" Mia asked, with the devastating sincerity that only children possess. "A little." Ethan considered the answer. "But it's also a relief when two people realize they can no longer make each other happy, no matter how hard they try." "And is that why you stay here with us?" Leo continued his meticulous investigation. "Because you're lonely?" "No." Ethan looked directly at each of them. "I stay here with you because it's where I want to be, because you make me happy in a way I didn't even know was possible." "Are you going to get married again?" Leo persisted with the determination of a little detective. Ethan looked directly at Clara, who was too focused on her flan. "Maybe, if I find the right person." "How will you know she's the right person?" Mia leaned forward, intensely interested in the topic. "I think you know it when you look at her and you feel like you've come home." His voice became softer, more intimate. "When you can't imagine a single day of your life without her, when she makes you want to be a better person just to be worthy of her love." The silence that followed was loaded with heavy meaning and expectation. Clara looked away, her cheeks slightly flushed, pretending to be absorbed in cleaning a non-existent stain from the table. "Can I have more flan?" Mia broke the tension with childlike practicality. "Just a little bit more," Clara replied, still avoiding Ethan's eyes. Later, after the children went to bed following the elaborate ritual of brushing their teeth, choosing pajamas, and listening to another story, this time about a dragon who discovered he was a vegetarian, Clara and Ethan stayed on the small apartment balcony, drinking coffee and watching the lights of New York City, which stretched to the horizon like an ocean of earthly stars. "They asked a lot of questions today," Clara commented, breaking the comfortable silence. "Kids are naturally curious. It's part of their normal development." "Ethan," she hesitated, her hands gripping the coffee cup as if it were an anchor. "I think it's time to tell them the truth." Ethan turned to her completely, surprised by the sudden declaration. "Are you sure? I thought you wanted to wait longer." "They're getting very attached to you, and you to them." Clara sighed deeply. "What if something goes wrong? If for some reason you have to leave suddenly?" "I told you I'm not going anywhere, Clara." "I know, but life is unpredictable, and besides," she paused, "they deserve to know who you really are, especially because of Mia's medical situation." Mia's most recent tests had revealed some subtle but worrying neurological alterations that required constant and specialized medical follow-up. The neurologists needed a complete paternal family history to define the best treatment protocol and fully understand her clinical picture. "How do you want to do it?" Ethan asked, his voice filled with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. "I don't know," Clara laughed without humor, a bitter sound that cut through the night. "How do you explain to two 7-year-old children that you lied to them for their entire lives? How do you ask for forgiveness for stealing their right to know their own father? You didn't lie, Clara. You protected them in the only way you knew how at the time, in the same way I was protected when I found out they existed. The irony in his voice was clear and painful. Protection through omission and silence never works for long, Ethan. The truth always finds a way to come to light. Ethan was silent, acknowledging that she was absolutely right. Protection through silence was an illusion that always ended up causing more pain than relief. How about this weekend? He suggested carefully. After the movie, when they're relaxed and happy, we can take them somewhere special and talk calmly. Where? I know a perfect place. Ethan smiled with a nostalgic sadness. A country house upstate that I used to go to with my father when I was a kid, and we needed to have important conversations. It's quiet, beautiful, surrounded by nature. A place where important conversations happen naturally. Clara nodded slowly, fear and determination fighting in her chest. Okay, then this weekend, after the movie. Everything is going to be all right, Ethan said, but his own voice carried uncertainty. How can you be so sure? Because they already love us as a family. The truth will only make official what we all already know in our hearts. Like this video if you believe in second chances, and share your favorite part of the story in the comments below. The day that changed everything. Friday arrived with a heavy, cloudy sky, loaded with a humidity that seemed to presage a storm. Clara woke up with a strange and persistent feeling in her stomach, as if something bad was approaching on the horizon, a maternal intuition that left her uneasy for no apparent reason. Mia woke up in a bad mood and with a throbbing headache. Symptoms that had become more frequent and worrying in recent weeks, leaving Clara constantly alert to any signs of worsening. I don't want to go to school today, she complained during breakfast, pushing her plate of fruit away with complete disinterest. You have to go, honey. Clara tried to keep her voice calm and patient. Today is the day of your presentation about marine animals. You worked so hard on it, remember? I don't care about stupid marine animals anymore. Mia made an exaggerated pout. My head hurts so much, and I just want to stay in bed. Leo watched his sister with the growing concern that had become his trademark in recent weeks. He had developed an almost paternal protective instinct in relation to Mia, as if he intuitively felt that she was more fragile and needed extra care. Do you want me to stay with you at school today? He offered seriously. I can ask Mrs. Peterson to let me watch your presentation in the other class. You have your own class, Leo, Clara said gently, touched by her son's dedication. And your own math presentation. But I take care of Mia. It's my job to take care of her. The simple and responsibility-laden phrase broke Clara's heart. Leo, at 7 years old, already carried the emotional weight of being the older brother, the designated protector, the one responsible for a safety that should be exclusively for adults. I know you take care of her, honey, and I'm very proud of that. But Mia will be fine at school, and afterward, you'll go to Mrs. Jenkins's house as always, where you can take care of each other. Mrs. Jenkins was the elderly neighbor from the next apartment who looked after the children during the few crucial hours between the end of school and Clara's arrival from work. A sweet and maternal woman, whom the children had spontaneously adopted as an honorary grandmother, and who treated them both with the affection of someone who never had their own grandchildren to spoil. The day passed with the tense normalcy of ordinary days. Clara concentrated on preparing for an important hearing on Monday. Ethan dealt with the last bureaucratic procedures of his divorce, and the children followed their school routines apparently without problems. Until 3 in the afternoon, when Clara's phone rang with the shrill urgency of emergencies. Dr. Stanton. Mrs. Jenkins's voice was visibly altered, filled with a concern that made Clara's blood run cold instantly. Leo didn't come home. What do you mean he didn't come home? Clara felt the world move under her feet. What do you mean by that? Mia came home normally at 2:30 with the school bus as always, but Leo didn't come with her. Mrs. Jenkins spoke quickly, clearly nervous. Mia said he stayed at school to finish an important project, but it seemed strange to me that he hadn't warned me. I called the school and spoke with the principal. She said Leo left at the normal time, along with all the other children. Clara was already grabbing her purse and running to the elevator, her heart beating so hard she could hear it in her ears. Mrs. Jenkins, stay with Mia at home. Lock the door and don't let her go out for anything in the world. I'm going to look for Leo right now. The next 2 hours were the longest and most agonizing in Clara's life. She meticulously retraced the entire route between the school and Mrs. Jenkins's house, not once, not twice, but 5 times, checking every side street, every alley, every place where a 7-year-old could have stopped or gotten lost. She checked the park where they used to play, searching every playground, every bench, every tree where Leo might be hiding. She checked the bakery where they sometimes bought sweets on the weekend, asking all the employees if they had seen a blonde, blue-eyed boy. She ran to the public library that Leo loved to visit, hoping to find him lost among the shelves of children's books. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. With every minute that passed, the desperation grew like a hungry beast devouring her sanity. Clara called all the parents of Leo's friends she could remember, the school 3 times, hospitals in the region asking about lost children. At 5:30 in the afternoon, with her hands trembling so much she could barely dial, she called Ethan. Leo disappeared. The 3 words cut through the air like daggers. On the other end of the line, Ethan was silent for 2 seconds that seemed eternal. Where are you? In front of the school. I've looked everywhere possible. He just disappeared. Don't move. I'm on my way, and I'm bringing help. In 20 minutes, that dragged on for hours. Ethan arrived at the school with 2 private investigators who worked regularly for his company on corporate security matters. Marcos Solis and Ricardo Perez were experienced professionals, specialists in missing persons cases. In 40 minutes, the police had been officially alerted, and a formal investigation was underway. The initial investigation, conducted with professional efficiency, revealed information that chilled the blood of everyone involved. Leo had indeed left school at the normal time, accompanied by the usual group of children who took the school bus. But instead of getting on the familiar school bus that had been taking him home for months, he had walked to the corner and voluntarily gotten into a black car that was waiting for him. Several children saw him and waved, thinking it was a family member who had come to pick him up for a special appointment. Leo had waved back, seemingly calm and showing no signs of fear or coercion. Someone he knew and trusted, Marcos Solis concluded after hearing the children's testimonies. He got into the car spontaneously, without hesitation. Who would have access to information about the children's schedules? Investigator Ricardo Perez asked pragmatically. Who would know exactly where and when to find Leo? The school, obviously, the teachers, the administration, Clara listed in a mechanical voice, trying to think rationally through the panic. Some parents of his friends, and the people closest to our family. Ethan, Mrs. Jenkins, my work colleagues, and your service staff, Mr. Davies. Marcos turned to Ethan with focused attention. Employees, chauffeurs, security guards, people who work at your home? Ethan frowned, confused by the direction of the question. I don't have employees who have direct contact with the kids. They never came to my house. They never met my staff personally. But do some people know about their existence? Some, yes. Ethan began to turn pale as he connected the dots. My secretary, my chauffeur, my personal lawyer, and... He stopped abruptly. Mrs. Jenkins. Who is Mrs. Jenkins? The housekeeper at the house where I live, where I lived with my ex-wife. Ethan was visibly disturbed now. She's worked for our family for 15 years. She knows all the details of our personal life. And in recent months, since I started spending time with Clara and the kids, I mentioned that I was visiting, that I was spending time with some special children. You need to talk to her immediately. Marcos was direct and urgent. Ethan took his cell phone with visibly trembling hands and dialed the house number. The phone rang 4, 5, 6 times before going to voicemail. Strange, because Mrs. Jenkins always answers on the second ring with military punctuality. He tried her cell phone, straight to voicemail. She never, ever fails to answer my phone. Ethan was visibly nervous now, running a hand through his hair repeatedly. Mrs. Jenkins is obsessively responsible and available. In 15 years, she has never ignored a call from me. We're going to her house. Now. Marcos decided without hesitation. The confrontation. The Davies mansion was on one of the most exclusive streets in the Hamptons. An imposing classical palace, surrounded by elaborate and perfectly manicured gardens. When they arrived, all the lights in the house were off, which was completely unusual for that time of day. Ethan used his keys to get in, calling out loudly, "Mrs. Jenkins? Mrs. Jenkins, are you there? I need to talk to you urgently." The silence that responded was heavy and ominous. The house seemed too empty, as if it were holding its breath. They found Mrs. Jenkins in the large and impeccable kitchen, sitting at the granite table, staring at her clasped hands, as if she were praying or preparing for a confession. She was a 62-year-old woman, her hair completely gray, pulled back in a tight bun. Her normally severe and controlled expression now empty and lost. "Mrs. Jenkins?" Ethan approached cautiously, as if he were dealing with a wounded animal. "Where is Leo?" She raised her eyes slowly, and Ethan saw there a devastating mixture of guilt, despair, and something that looked almost like relief at finally being discovered. "I didn't want to hurt him." The words came out in a low, almost whispered voice. "I swear on everything sacred, I didn't want to cause any pain to that innocent child." "Where is he, Mrs. Jenkins?" Ethan had to lean on the table to keep from falling. "At the country house in Connecticut, on the property that belonged to my parents." Mrs. Jenkins began to cry silently, tears running down her wrinkled face. "He's fine, I promise. I gave him food, fresh water. I left him the toys he brought from school. I even let him turn on the TV to distract himself." Ethan felt the world spin around him. "Why, Mrs. Jenkins? In the name of God, why did you do this? Because she ruined everything." The answer exploded from her, like a volcano of months of repressed rage. "Everything was perfect. You were going to marry Miss Victoria. You were going to have a proper life. You were going to build a respectable family, and this woman, this Lara, came out of nowhere and destroyed everything again." "Mrs. Jenkins, the children are my biological children." "They're not." She shook her head violently, refusing to accept reality. "You don't have children. You have a legitimate wife. You have social responsibilities. You have a respectable man to take care of. That woman is lying. She's taking advantage of your kindness. She's trying to destroy everything you built." Ethan realized with growing horror that he was dealing with someone who had completely lost touch with reality. Someone whose sick devotion had turned into destructive obsession. "What's the exact address of the country house?" Marcos intervened, pragmatic and focused on what was essential. "Route 20, number 847, near the old mill. It's after the bend with the abandoned church on a dirt road. The house is blue with white windows." They left immediately. The trip to Connecticut took 55 minutes that felt like 5 eternal hours. Clara was crying silently in the back seat. Ethan was holding her hand with desperate strength, and they were both praying to find Leo unharmed and without serious psychological trauma. On the way, Ethan called his lawyer and the family doctor, arranging all the assistance Leo might need. He also contacted a child psychologist specialized in trauma to be available as soon as necessary. The reunion. The country house was a small and isolated property, with a simple but well-maintained house, painted light blue with white details on the windows and doors. When they arrived, they saw a light on in the window of what appeared to be a back room. Ethan didn't wait for the investigators. He ran to the front door and started banging. "Leo! Leo! Are you there? It's Ethan!" From inside the house, they heard a cry of relief and joy. "Ethan! Ethan! I'm here! I'm in here!" Ethan tried the doorknob. Locked. Marcos appeared with a screwdriver and quickly forced the simple lock. Leo was in the back room, sitting on a single bed with a floral quilt, looking through a children's storybook. When he saw Ethan in the doorway, his eyes filled with tears of pure relief, and he ran directly into the arms of the man he considered his personal hero. "Ethan, I knew you'd find me. I knew it!" He clung to Ethan's neck as if he would never let go again. Ethan held him as if Leo were made of precious crystal, feeling his heart return to its normal rhythm for the first time in hours. "Are you hurt?" he asked, anxiously checking to see if Leo had any visible injuries. "Did she hurt you in any way?" "No, no." Leo shook his head against Ethan's shoulder. "She just said it was a special surprise for you, that you had asked me to stay here for a little while waiting, but it took a very, very long time, and she wouldn't let me call my mom to tell her where I was." Clara arrived a few seconds later, having run from the front of the house and wrapped her son in a desperate and protective embrace. "My love, my boy, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," she cried openly, checking every inch of him for bruises. "Never again. I promise I'll never let anything happen to you." "Mom, it's okay." Leo consoled her with a maturity that broke her heart. "I knew you'd find me. Ethan once promised he would always protect me, and he kept his promise." The revelation. In the car, on the way back to the city, Leo asked the question that would definitely change the course of their lives. "Ethan, why were you so desperate when I disappeared? Why did you mobilize so many people to look for me?" Ethan looked at Clara through the rearview mirror. She was sitting next to Leo, holding his hand as if it were a talisman against all the evils of the world. Their eyes met in the mirror, and she nodded almost imperceptibly. The moment had come. There was no longer any way to postpone the truth. "Because I love you, Leo, and I couldn't live if something happened to you, just like a father loves a son." The silence stretched for miles of dark highway. Ethan could hear his own heart beating in his ears. "Exactly like a father loves a son," he finally replied, his voice choked with emotion. "It's because you're my real father." Clara closed her eyes, knowing there was no turning back. "Yes," Ethan said with absolute simplicity. "I'm your father, and Mia's too. I've always been, since before you were born." Leo was silent for a long moment, processing the information with the seriousness of someone much older. "I knew it," he finally said, surprising the adults. "I didn't know I knew it, but there was something inside me that recognized you. That's why I like you so much. That's why I feel safe when you're around. That's why you were so desperate when I disappeared." "Are you mad at me for not telling you sooner?" Ethan asked, genuinely concerned about his son's reaction. "No," Leo shook his head thoughtfully. "I'm mad at whoever made you stay away from us for so long. But I'm not mad at you." Clara started to cry again, but this time they were tears of relief and gratitude. Her son had not only forgiven, but had shown an emotional understanding that left her both proud and humbled. "Leo," she said softly, "do you understand that it was my fault? That it was me who didn't tell Ethan you existed?" "Why?" Leo asked with genuine, non-judgmental curiosity. "Because I was scared. Scared that he wouldn't want you. Scared that I wasn't good enough for him. scared that he would get tired of us and abandon us. But he's here now, Leo observed with childlike logic, and he loves us, and you're good enough for anyone, and even if we had problems, he would love us just the same. So the fear was wrong. The simplicity of Leo's conclusion was devastating and liberating at the same time. When they got home, Mia ran to her brother and didn't let him go for several minutes, obsessively checking if he was really okay and in one piece. Mrs. Jenkins had prepared hot chocolate for everyone, and they sat in the living room, finally reunited and safe. "Mia," Clara said delicately, "Ethan has something very important to tell you." Mia looked at Ethan with her big, trusting eyes, and to everyone's surprise, she smiled as if she already knew what was coming. "You're my dad," she said before he could open his mouth. "Leo told me on the phone on the way home, but I already suspected it." "How did you suspect it?" Ethan asked, genuinely surprised. "You love me just like Mom loves me. With that love that has no explanation, you know." Mia shrugged, as if it were obvious. "And you have the same eyes as me, and the same way of tilting your head when you're thinking. And when I get sick, you make that worried face that only dads make. It was kind of obvious that you were my real dad." Ethan laughed, a mix of relief and admiration for his daughter's extraordinary emotional intelligence. "And you're not mad at me for not telling you sooner?" "No." Mia shook her head decisively. "We understand that sometimes adults do complicated things for reasons that seem right at the time, even if they're wrong. But now you can live with us." Hope shone in her eyes. "Can you be our dad every day, not just on Tuesdays and Thursdays?" Ethan looked at Clara, who nodded slowly. "That will depend on several important things. First, I'm officially divorcing Victoria, and your mom and I need to talk about a lot of things about our family's future. Do you still love Mom?" Mia got straight to the point with the typical frankness of children. "Mia!" Clara protested, her cheeks red with embarrassment. "It's a super important question, Mom," Mia insisted seriously. "If he's going to be our real dad every day, it's much better if you two love each other. Otherwise, it's going to be weird and complicated." Ethan looked directly into Clara's eyes, and the whole room seemed to fall into complete silence. "I never stopped loving your mother, not for a second in 7 long years, not even when I thought she had abandoned me without explanation. And you, Mom?" Leo joined the loving interrogation. "Do you love Ethan?" Clara took a deep breath, knowing that after everything they had been through, after almost losing Leo, after years of lies and silences that almost destroyed everything, there was no longer any room in their lives for anything but the most absolute and raw truth. "Yes, I love him," her voice admitted, choked with emotion. "I've always loved him. Every day of these 7 years, even when I tried to convince myself that I had moved on." The children exchanged triumphant and complicit glances. "Then you just have to get married soon and that's it," Mia concluded with childlike practicality. Problem solved, family complete, happy ending just like in the good movies. The garden of the country house in Connecticut was transformed into a fairy tale setting. Wildflowers, in shades of white, pink, and yellow, decorated every corner, intertwined with golden lights that hung from the ancient trees like fallen stars from the sky. It was a small, intimate wedding. Just the true family and the closest friends who had accompanied their entire journey of reconciliation. Mia wore a light pink dress with a voluminous skirt and a delicate crown of natural flowers, feeling like a true princess. Leo was elegant in a navy blue suit, identical to his father's, with a tie that he had personally chosen because it matches Dad's eyes. Clara walked slowly toward the improvised altar, under a century-old tree that Ethan had climbed when he was a boy, wearing a simple but elegant dress in shades of ivory, carrying a bouquet of white daisies picked from the country house's own garden. There was no father to walk her down the aisle, but she didn't feel alone or abandoned. Leo and Mia accompanied her, one on each side, proud and solemn in their mission to give their mother to the man who had finally, officially, become the father he should have always been. Ethan waited for her with tears in his eyes, wearing the suit he had bought specifically for that day, feeling like the luckiest and most grateful man in the universe. Victoria's divorce had been finalized 3 months earlier, after she was correctly diagnosed with severe bipolar disorder and admitted for intensive treatment at a specialized clinic. Mrs. Jenkins was also receiving adequate psychiatric follow-up, and Ethan had decided, after much thought and consultation with therapists, not to proceed legally, understanding that she needed medical treatment, not legal punishment. The ceremony was conducted by Dr. Robert Davies, a retired judge and family friend who knew the whole complicated story and had been deeply moved by their journey of separation and reunion. "Clara and Ethan," he said, his voice filled with genuine emotion, "you had to travel an extraordinarily long and painful road to get to this moment. You got lost in the labyrinth of fear and found each other again through courage. You hurt each other deeply and healed each other mutually. You loved each other despite the physical and emotional distance, despite the lost time, despite all the circumstances that conspired against you. Today, you are not only getting married, you are making official a family that always existed in the heart, a love that never truly died, a second chance that we all deserve when we fight for it with total dedication." When it came time for the personal vows, Ethan held Clara's hands and spoke directly to her soul, completely ignoring the people around him. "Clara, I spent 7 years believing you had abandoned me because you didn't love me enough. Today, I know you left to protect me, in the same brave way you protected our children all those lonely years. You are the strongest woman I know, the most dedicated mother I can imagine, the bravest person I have ever met. I solemnly promise that we will never lose each other again. I promise to be the father that Leo and Mia deserve to have, the husband you always dreamed of having, the man our family needs to be complete. I love you with an intensity that scares me. I always loved you, even when it hurt, and I will love you until the last beat of my heart." Clara could barely speak through the tears that ran freely down her face. "Ethan, I made the biggest mistake of my life when I left without explaining my fears. I thought I was freeing you from a burden, but I was only running from the responsibility of trusting our love. Scared of not being enough, scared that our children weren't perfect, irrationally scared that you would get tired of us and abandon us. Today, I know that true love doesn't run from difficulties. It stays, it fights, it builds bridges over chasms. I promise never again to make decisions alone that affect our family. I promise to be your partner in all battles, your companion in all dreams, your accomplice in all adventures. I love you with all my soul. I always loved you, even when I tried to deny it. And our love story is only truly beginning." When the judge declared them husband and wife, Leo and Mia shouted, "Hooray!" in unison, and threw rose petals into the air that fell on the couple like a perfumed blessing. It was the complete family, finally reunited, officially sealed. During the party that followed, with live music and dancing under the stars, Mia approached her parents with a solemn expression. "Can I ask for something special?" she asked. "It would be like a grown-up miniature." "Of course, Princess. Anything," Ethan replied, kneeling down to her level. "When I grow up and get married someday, I want my wedding to be exactly like yours." How so, honey? Clara asked, intrigued. With a complicated story that ends up really happy, Mia explained with conviction. With people who love each other even when it's very difficult and confusing. With a family that never gives up on each other, even when it seems impossible. With real love, the kind that never ends. Leo joined the conversation as he always did. And when I have kids, I'll tell them the whole story of how Grandpa Ethan and Grandma Clara got lost and found each other. So they'll know that sometimes the best things in life need to be won twice, and that true love is worth waiting and fighting for. Ethan and Clara looked at each other over their children's heads, knowing that Leo and Mia had learned the most important and valuable lessons about life. That true love forgives the gravest mistakes, that families are built with infinite patience and daily dedication, and that second chances, when won with genuine effort, can be even more precious and solid than the first ones. Thank you for reading. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone you love. Let us know in the comments what your favorite part was and what you learned from this powerful tale of second chances and unconditional love.